Hello, 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 everybody. So my name's Dominic, and I use he, him pronouns, and I'm going to be presenting on housing in Ann Arbor today for students who are interested in joining our program. Now, this is me and one of my coworkers, Howard Darwich, who's unable to be with us today. But my name's Dominic, like I said, and I'm on the Welfare of Children and Families pathway on the 20-month track. So here's some of our other students who work in the Office of Student Services, and there's a couple more whose pictures haven't been updated yet. But we're not going to have any questions. What I want to talk about broadly today, though, is living in Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti, what it means to live on campus at the University of Michigan, renting versus living on campus, how to find a roommate, transportation, as well as some things to do. On campus housing. I do want to say up front about how this works at Ann Arbor. So the school and the town are very much intermixed. There's not like a street where the university begins and the town ends, like you might see at some other schools. Um, Instead, all the buildings are mixed in together. So right next to my apartment, there is the University of Michigan Ombudsman and a Korean restaurant, I think, and this that share an office front together. It's all kind of blended together. And this means that on-campus housing really just refers to campus housing that's owned by the university. It doesn't mean it's closer necessarily. It just is like about ownership and how financial aid works. So we have Munger Hall, which is a huge, huge dorm hall that the university owns and operates very nearby on North Campus, as well within walking distance of the School of Social Work. This is primarily for graduate students, exclusively actually, and the amenities are beautiful. It's very nice. It has like gyms, tracks, I think it has a store in it to buy food for prep too. Like it's very nice. There's also Northwood Apartments, which are nearby as well. And finally, there's a graduate student cooperative housing set up. And you can use financial aid to pay for, I believe, Munger and Northwood. This is useful for students who might need some like financial aid support. So you can use your financial aid for this, and it is paid for upfront, much like how most student housing is done in the state of Michigan. So broadly, that's kind of what on-campus housing looks like. I just want to say up front also about Ann Arbor versus Ypsi. Ypsilanti is a large twin city with Ann Arbor. It's about 10 minutes from here, the School of Social Work specifically. It's a very nice college town. Eastern Michigan University is there. It has nice restaurants, things to do, and it's typically, I'd say typically cheaper than Ann Arbor rent. It's very common for students to live in Ypsi while in the program, commute in. Um, so I think it's worthwhile looking at Ypsilanti too. And I'm going to pull up a map so that students get a good sense of sort of what the school and the surrounding area look like. So you see Ypsilanti down in the corner, and then the sort of like larger Ann Arbor. For context, the School of Social Work, do you see that bus 23 route there? Yes, that is basically connecting downtown Ypsi to downtown Ann Arbor, and I believe the School of Social Work is on that route right there, or very close, just to give you a sense of where everything's located. Now, I want to talk about off-campus housing now. Ann Arbor is a huge town, about 100,000 people in it, and we have a bunch of different options for housing. Um, to be upfront, housing is expensive in Ann Arbor, especially downtown. Um, that's one challenge of living in the city. Moving outside of walking distance will dramatically lower costs. So students typically live in like Arborland, which is a large like shopping center mall area that's a little bit outside of walking distance from the university, but the rent's much cheaper. Um, Housing also goes quickly here. So if you're in downtown and you're looking for housing downtown, I would move fast if you want to live there. Um, we have a lot of variety of options for renting. So there's high rises, there's sort of more traditional duplexes, houses that students rent. Pretty much every option that's typical is available in Ann Arbor based on your preferences. We have a housing service through the university that functions very much like Zillow and includes information about reputable landlords, costs, and locations. Um, this is really useful for just sort of getting a sense on the ground of what the area looks like in terms of renting. My landlord is campus management and they've been pretty good to me. But I think that that's really useful for students to get a sense of the area and just get a lay of the land. Again, my final kind of bit of advice though is move quickly. It can be challenging, so I recommend students are quick. Now, how to find a roommate? This is a great question. If I do say so myself, because I wrote these slides. Um, Facebook is a very common way to find roommates. This is typical for students to connect via Facebook Marketplace and other sort of services. We have a roommate finder service through the School of Social Work too. This will kind of connect you with other social work students. And I know a lot of students who use this program. Um, you have to be both an accepted student who's confirmed their admission to use this tool. You have to have a U of M email and everything set up. So you can't log in until that point. But students are generally very happy with this, I found. Again, move quickly, please. And then there was a graduate student co-op. That's another way to find roommates. Typically, landlords in the area, how it usually goes is when they're matching roommates together, they almost use like a dating service app. I've heard it compared to that many times. So you'll have like preferences put in there for bedtime, chores, stuff like that. And then that'll sort of be compared with other people and you kind of match, connect, and work out through there. And that's how landlords fill up off-campus apartments with students. Transportation. This is really important. Washtenaw County is very transportation dense. That's the county that the University of Michigan's in and Eastern Michigan University. Ann Arbor is designed to be very walkable for pedestrians. So if you live in the downtown, it is a great city to walk around in. It's very easy to get from place to place. There's a lot of stuff to do, which I'll talk about shortly. But I think that's a perk of living in the city. It's great to just walk around in, and it's very friendly to pedestrians and bikers. Um, City driving and parking, on the other hand, students are often not as happy with this element because you do have to pay for parking. There are many structures in the area, and these are all things to be aware of when you're purchasing housing. Um, you can pay for a parking pass through the university as well, but just sort of be aware of how this works. Finally, we have really good busing. This is free through your U of M ID, but most of Ypsilanti and Ann Arbor are connected together through a very complicated busing system that gets you where you need to go. Um, I've used it, it's great. It also connects all the way out to Detroit. So if you need to get from place to place for field, your job, I think you'll find that very accommodating through our school and program. So those are some things to think about. We also have a regional airport. And if you need cars for certain field placements, the office can find like field placements that don't require transportation for you. So you can just walk or bus there. So it's a service that we offer as well. What to do in Michigan? As I've been saying, Ann Arbor is an awesome city to live in. We have a lot of great food and restaurants. Here are some of my favorites. Madras Masala is an Indian restaurant that I am currently obsessed with. I'm a big fan. Side Biscuit's probably the best chicken wing restaurant, and Miss Kim's is an awesome Korean restaurant. We have tons of shopping. We have a lot of really interesting, like old and antique bookstores. I like to go there a lot. And finally, we have beautiful outdoor spaces. We have the Arboretum, we have the Diag, which is a huge area where students often hang out in. And then finally, we have a lot of summer festivals and activities. The Ann Arbor Art Fair is probably the most notable, I'd say, where it's about, I think it's the biggest art fair in North America. I think it's the biggest art fair in North America. Basically, the entirety of the city is filled with artists for a couple days. And they have booths, they're selling goods, and things go from like $5 to $30,000. So that's a really cool perk of living in the city in Ann Arbor. So those are some things to think about. Ypsilanti has similar things. That's a really strong community there too. So now we'll kind of just talk about some general questions. Some things that I typically hear from students. One of the big ones is that part I mentioned earlier about field sites vis-a-vis location and where you're living. We have field sites all over the state. A lot of them are in Ypsilanti, Ann Arbor, and Detroit typically because that's where students live. But we have field sites all over the state depending on what you need and what's easier for you. So let's say you're living in somewhere around Detroit because of rent or whatever you might need in your life. there are typically field sites that are relatively close to where you may need to live vis-a-vis the school. So it might be less of a commute depending on where you go. But that's something you need to work out the field site. Similarly, if you don't have a car and you're living somewhere, the field site can work with you to find a site that might be good for what you need. So students often ask about on-campus housing too. Is there a lottery system? Do students get the housing they need? Munger Hall does have a lottery system. However, I'm not aware of anyone who's been rejected from Munger Hall. It's very big, very big. So typically it seems like students get what they need there. Those are some options that I've heard frequently. Parking in Ann Arbor, again, we get a decent number of questions about that. The parking structure for the university is well within walking distance of the School of Social Work. And there are several structures nearby too that are not owned by the university. I'm trying to remember what are some other questions that we usually get about housing. Again, my advice, definitely use the roommate app, definitely use the landlord and housing finder app that we have through the university. The key to getting housing in Ann Arbor is to look. So please let us know if you have any questions and if there's anything else that we can do to help. But I hope you all have a great rest of your day.